Chief Greg Terry. Chief, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So let's talk about this. 163 days since the boys were first reported missing in Cal City. Of course, we've talked about this months ago that your agency, the Bakersfield Police Department, has become the lead agency on this case. 163 days. You're saying the case is not cold. Why?
It is not a cold case. As you can see yesterday from the...
About these two missing boys is Bakersfield Police Chief Greg Terry. Chief, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So let's talk about this. 163 days since the boys were first reported missing in Cal City. Of course, we've talked about this months ago that your agency, the Bakersfield Police Department, has become the lead agency on this case. 163 days. You're saying the case is not cold. Why?
It is not a cold case. As you can see yesterday from the stats that we released, this is still very much an active case, and we are looking at every possible lead. One of the things about this particular case is two young boys, they don't just disappear. They don't just walk away on their own. Something happened at that day, or in those days, or at that residence. And so we are paying attention to every possible detail about what was reported, how it was reported, what was going on at the time, what had been occurring in the previous days or weeks or months even. So attention to detail is very critical in this case. Yesterday we released some details to give a little bit of insight into how much we have been doing, but it's very much an active case.
Well, let's go over those numbers one more time. So 170 items seized, 44 search warrants, 16 mass area searches, 3 outside California, and more than 200 tips. These are big numbers. It sounds really impressive. What comes from this?
Every single day, we have a detective dedicated solely to this as a lead investigator, and he's working with a team of experts and analysts, even from other agencies such as the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, technical experts from the FBI. They're diving into every part of the items of evidence, what the statements were, what just the smallest of details they're looking. So whether it was in a statement, whether it was in an item of evidence, the digital evidence is going to be very important in this case, and we're very much actively searching those items as well.
So the boys were reported missing on December 21st. 163 days ago, they were reported missing. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that, is this something that your department is looking at, that they may have been reported missing on that day, but something could have happened days, weeks, or months prior to that?
The short answer is we don't know what happened to them. And because we don't know, we're looking at everything. We're looking at what was reported, when it was reported, what was going on in the days, weeks, months leading up to that date. Is that the date that they were missing? We just don't know. And because we don't know, we're looking at everything, and we will not stop until we know what happened to these young boys.
You talked about all those little details that your department is looking at. You have a lead investigator that is dedicating his time to this. What have you found? What has the department found in all of these search warrants, items seized, searches, all these tips, 200 tips? What has come from that makes this case go forward?
Leads. Little bits of information, a little bit of a breadcrumb from a witness statement, from an item of evidence that gets seized, from a tip that comes in. We're actively and aggressively pursuing every lead. And so the point of going piece by piece and paying attention to the closest and smallest detail in each of those things provides leads, provides us another step, provides us a potentially additional evidence to find out what happened.
Can you assure the community that you're moving forward, your department is moving forward in this investigation?
Absolutely. Like I said, we do not know what happened to them, and we're not going to stop until we know.
But there's nothing that has, in those tips and searches, you have been able to find things that have kept this investigation going?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about what comes next for the department. 163 days. We here at KGT have been counting the days. At some point, though, there's going to be a dead end, whether if you do not find these boys, if we don't know what happens to these boys, there is going to be a dead end. At what point does the department say, you know what, we've used all our resources, we've done absolutely everything that we can to try to find answers, and we can't? At what point do you get to that point?
We'll have to see if we get to that point. We are not at that point, and we are continuing to find little bits of information, enough to keep going, another lead, another location to go search, or another tip that comes in. This has continued over the last 163 days, and like I said, we are committed to finding out the truth about what happened to these young boys.
All right, I got to ask you, because there's a lot of people invested in this case. We know of people who have raised money for a reward to find these missing boys and to search for answers. We know of people who have raised money to put billboards, not just locally, but across the country, country saying where we need help. We need to find these missing boys. And there's also been groups that have formed to do their own searches, to help the police department, to help other officers going out there. What is the most effective way to get involved? How can people out there in the community that want to do something, how can they get involved in finding these boys?
The most effective way for them to assist us in this search is to provide us information that they have. If they have reason to believe that there's a location that needs to be searched, give us that information, because one of the things about this coordinated investigation with multiple agencies is we have a lead detective that knows the full scope of everything that we're looking at, and it might be a very important piece of the puzzle, so that information needs to be provided to us. We recognize that there's great interest in this. 2 young boys just disappearing. We want to find out what happened to them, and we will find out. But we don't want people out searching and potentially disturbing or destroying evidence. If you know, or if you have a tip, or if you have information that you think might be important to us, call us so that we can put it with the rest of the pieces that we have to see if it's significant.
Bakersfield Police Chief Greg Terry, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.